Hello, guys. This was a very emotional week, and we had to protect ourselves not just from the Russian attacks, but also from the psychological attacks coming from the White House. Quite unexpected and bad, not just for Ukraine, but for the world and the United States too. But I'm very proud that we remained strong and protected the truth. Because the truth about this war is very important, not just for Ukrainian victory, but also for the normal life on this planet. If we allow bullies and criminals substitute the reality, manipulate the facts, and pretend that Zelenskyy and Putin are just two guys that cannot agree on something minor, we betray, humanity. And this is really great that despite all the efforts, all the money, all the publicity, all that staged show, we did not fail. And right now we feel the tremendous support of people everywhere in the world. Starting from this very important and I think historical peace summit in London, and finishing with very strong protests in the United States, where people demonstrate their support for Ukrainian president, and I'm very grateful for that. And when I criticize some American decisions, please remember I'm talking about the White House. I clearly see the difference and the surprise, actually, for many Americans who even supported Donald Trump, with this tremendous shift that even Russian diplomacy describes as an unexpectedly positive move. But let's forget about that BS in the White House and focus on the important decisions that were made today in London by people who behaved with dignity and spoke about freedom, spoke about the need to punish the aggressor and to make Ukraine and its people stronger. Because this is vital for the survival, no, not just of Europe, but the whole world. And the proof to that is the presence of the Canadian government on the meeting. And Turkey was there. And many more countries. I have a list and I will tell you all of them. But the United States were not present because, according to the advisors of Donald Trump, they need a different president in Ukraine able to agree with Russians. I am sorry, but Zelenskyy is a representative of the Ukrainian people's will. And nobody here will ever choose a president that will shake hands with Putin. And I don't advise Donald Trump to do that too, because it may be that his term can be shorter than he expects. So let's discuss the most important messages of the London summit and the bright events of this week from an ordinary Ukrainian perspective. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of Russia, subscribe, we discuss all of that on the channel. So this very bad show that was staged in Washington failed, and it failed tremendously because the support of Donald Trump's position on Ukraine and Russia is something that Americans do not accept. And various questionnaires demonstrate that despite that, the American government keeps repeating that Zelenskyy has to apologize, the vast majority of Americans does not support that. What I also like is this very vivid difference between the way politicians communicate in Europe and now in the United States. Something really bad is happening with Elon Musk, Donald Trump, JD Vance mocking, humiliating, looking for flaws in normal democratic countries, your yesterday's best friends, and worshipping and demonstrating respect to bloody killers like Putin. This is not okay. This kind of bullying, this kind of questions, it does not represent a decent country. And I'm sure it irritates lots of Americans. And this atmosphere in London was amazing. I saw how many World leaders wanted to hug Zelensky. It's not very common in Europe. We are not very like huggable, hugging people. But there were tons of photos when he was literally squeezed, even by Starmer, who is not very tactile, as the British newspapers report. So I have made a list of countries, and perhaps these are not all who were present during this peace summit. And of course, it's Britain, it's France, and Finland, Poland, Denmark, Italy, Spain, Romania, Germany, Sweden, the Netherlands, Canada, Norway, Czechia, Turkey, and the representatives of the European Union, of NATO, the head of NATO, the head of European Commission, and there were no US representatives. Because right now they care about the Russians' point of view, and to a great extent they protect Russian vision of the peace deal, which will never be accepted, not just by Ukraine, but by all sane people literally everywhere. And one of the main messages of the London Peace Summit is that we will never agree on Minsk agreements or something like that. Because Putin is a pathological liar. He is a war criminal, and he cannot be treated as a negotiator. Russia cannot dictate the terms. If it wants to survive, it has to accept the terms that strong democratic countries can drop to it. Please subscribe to demonstrate your solidarity and to help us spread more true information. When Elon Musk shares memes about Ukrainians being responsible for all the troubles, forgetting who is the aggressor and who is to blame in this war. If you want to stop the killing, make Russians leave Ukraine. It's that simple. So I'm really happy that a lot of different countries were present on the summit, and this is definitely breaking the plans of Trump and Putin. Unfortunately, right now, their plans are very similar. They thought that Europe will be paralyzed with fear, that Zelensky will agree on anything after humiliation, or that people will react and make him, when it's just like it's just the country, because they know nothing about real people. They live in this bubble, and I'm sorry, I have to say it. Right now, the US administration resembles the old Soviet administration, where they had a very weird leader and literally everyone bowing to that leader and constantly flattering him. It's not okay. You cannot hear people speaking independently around Donald Trump. They just have to praise him. This is like North Korea. This is like Stalin times. This does not look good. Don't you see that? Be careful, guys. So right now, these leaders, together with Canada, that right now understands that once again, the modern US administration is very hostile to literally perhaps the politest country in the world. Greetings, people from Canada. And Britain, even with Brexit, feels that Europe is our common responsibility, but oh my God, America, democracy, freedom is our common responsibility. It's not about money for Ukraine, it's about the defeating of the aggressor, very bloody one. And what is interesting, Turkey was there with the top representatives, and it seems like this country wants to play a very important role and actually fully supports Ukraine. And how they broke Russia's plan in Syria was just amazing. Maybe they want to do something similar here with Ukraine. I know they are very interested in Crimea potential for resorts, but sure, they will not annex it. They will simply develop it, and I personally do not mind at all. And sometimes I receive comments, that's quite unexpected, that's quite unexpected. It is unexpected only for those people who don't know Ukrainian history. And throughout Ukrainian history, especially in times of Cossacks, there were a lot of alliances between Ukrainians and Ottoman Empire. So they are not that foreign to us. Okay. So let's talk about this beautiful, beautiful coalition of the willing. I even like the way it is named, Coalition of the Willing, which says that only those who willing will help protect Ukraine and make us stronger so that Europe is stronger and the world is safer. Fortunately, there are a lot of willing, and Zelenskyy was squeezed on the photo by Starmer and Macron, and they actually named it a family photo, and it felt like that. And I'm very grateful that right now Ukraine definitely feels a part of the European family. And perhaps the most important message coming from Starmer's is that Britain is ready to send boots on the ground and planes in the air. Boots on the ground and planes in the air. Just imagine how Putin and Trump feel at that moment. Trump playing golf and constantly reporting about that while his administration worships this fact. I don't know why, literally why. And Putin in some of his bunkers who thought that they can actually decide everything and humiliate the world as classical bullies, but it did not work out. I knew it about Ukraine. I'm happy to know it about Europe. Moreover, 5,000 air defense shells, or how do you call it, are given to Ukraine. And what is even better, they will be produced in Belfast, not in the United States. And actually, this decision, very wrong for the United States strategically, diplomatically, because come on, we were the best protectors of the American interests in Europe, and maybe we will return to that after Donald Trump is different. I think that if they keep making friends with Putin, Europe, of course, will stop sharing intelligence and will stop buying American weapons. They can be substituted. Trust me, Europe experienced a lot of things during the Second World War, and they have a lot of skills, knowledge, and most importantly, motivation. So already this 5,000 air defense shells will be bought from Belfast, not from America as it was previously. And I believe a lot of American military industry producers will be very disappointed with the way master strategist Trump operates. And military industry was quite important for the United States. Many will understand later that out of that 100 billion, not 500, $100 billion that Ukraine received during the 3 years of war, a big half of it remained in the United States for those military producers. But you will feel that later. Right now, Trump repeats Russian propaganda. So another thing is the tempo that the European leaders are choosing, and another summit is planned for more decisions to come. There are rumors that Germany is preparing 2 separate funds that can actually be equal to €1 trillion, one for infrastructure, another one for weapons, if America decides to distract. Oh my God! Putin, we are not giving up, and you will have more problems, and Trump will have more problems in America. Subscribe to see that together and discuss that together. Another very strong message is that, of course, no one will accept the demilitarization of Ukraine, just the country. We have to be extremely heavily militarized country, especially in the case of any ceasefire. And I think we do have the strongest army in Europe. We do have a lot of military weapons developers, and all of that will boom in the decades to come. So it would be much smarter not to invest in some untested, invisible, unreachable rare earth minerals, but perhaps Ukrainian military industry. Unfortunately, that was not the plan discussed by Putin and Trump, but perhaps this master strategist failed once again. Another very important declaration is that no countries in the European Union will lift sanctions until Russia is defeated. So even if the United States administration decides to lift sanctions, Europe will not do it, and I'm sure this will not look good in the eyes of the global world, making it more difficult for Donald Trump to make this decision. And what is also important, Meloni was present. We know that she has good relations with Trump and good relations with Musk. I don't know how, but she may be a kind of messenger and bridge between the European leaders and the United States, because personally I think that right now Trump is lost what to do. He did not expect such reaction. He thought that it would be just like classical humiliating locker thing, but it turned out that he was looking bad and people don't listen to him and they don't like his vision of give everything to Russia, forget about Ukraine. That's not the way decent people live. And he still wants to look a big boss, and I'm sure he will change. He will pretend, of course. He changed his attitude towards Zelenskyy, and I think this pathetic efforts that Zelenskyy has to apologize for what? For inviting Vance to Ukraine so that he does not say he watched some Russian stories? There is nothing our president can apologize for. I think Trump and Vance can. But I think these pathetic efforts are actually a thing. They realize they need to come back to pretend they are with Ukraine and they are looking for an option. But perhaps everyone will pretend because that's how the diplomacy works. But I believe all the countries in the world have already understood what Donald Trump is and J.D. Vance and his administration. Another important reminder, I do know many people in the United States feel very different and now are very disappointed and frightened. Don't be, we will, that will pass. That's what we say in Ukraine. France wants to strengthen its nuclear potential so that, if the United States want to leave this Euro-Atlantic alliance, which was actually very good for the United States to trust me. But if they don't want to make friends with us, we will not insist. And another important thing is that Europe has 300 billion frozen assets of Russia. And this is a very good argument for any kind of negotiations or finally to use the support of Ukrainian military potential. The United States do not have that argument, 5 billion and that's it. 300 billion of Russian assets and Brussels control them. And this is what makes Putin sweat. So I was very satisfied to watch this summit, and I have to tell you that it made me feel good, not just from this Ukrainian perspective, but I think it is very important for people in the world to tell you that humiliating others, bullying others, especially if these are brave, decent people standing for something very real, like their motherland, it's very bad. And it will always backfire. And messages coming from the White House that we need another president in Ukraine so that he can negotiate with Russia. Just listen to that. That is a betrayal. And as a Ukrainian, I can tell you that we need a different president in Russia to be able to negotiate. And I can continue this phrase, but I will remain politically correct to those Trump supporters. I am very grateful, I am very proud to be Ukrainian, and I'm grateful that we feel the strong support of Europe. It's very important for every human being on the planet to see that by bullying and humiliating, by lying, by pretending that Russia is not responsible for all that tragedy it brought to my country, it is a sin. And I actually do not understand why so many Christians support Trump when it is very unchristian to close eyes on such evil, to lie, to substitute the reality. and to humiliate decent people who once again protect their motherland, and as it turns out, not just motherland. Because have you heard Trump commenting on the Baltic states and Article 5 and saying that, well, that's a very complicated region? I think it is exactly what Putin trained him to say. But we have Ukraine, we have Europe, we have Australia, we have a lot of good Americans who don't think the way Trump does. And I'm very grateful, actually, that very few people in the United States like Russia. You may not like Ukraine, but you have to accept, you have to say the truth. Russia is the aggressor. Russia is responsible for thousands of war crimes, and it must be held accountable for that. And I'm grateful that we have this strong community who share these values and stands for the truth. That is very important, more than ever. Thank you once again for your friendship. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming patrons and sponsors of the channel. Visit our merch shop. The link is in the description. We have a lot of good t-shirts, sweatshirts, cups, and many other products that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine. And we need that support, attention, and visibility right now. Thank you for all the rallies that you visit or organize. Thank you for all the messages that you send or share. Please share these videos. This is important. Join me on X, Blue Sky, Threads, Discord, and Instagram. And you know I love you, and a big part of our strength, resilience, and bravery is because we feel your love, your strength, your bravery, and your resilience. United we stand. Slava Ukraini!